After a million trades, the NFL looks completely different. We got to go through, we got to identify some buy low wide receivers here. But before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in that comment section. And down there in that comment section, you will find a link to Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, you can find out all these cool player props. You can hop into some weekly best ball drafts if that's what you want to do. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. I know you've already heard me 10 times now go through and say that this week, everybody who signs up with promo code FLOCK is going to get the Derrick Henry free bet. Worked my butt off to get y'all this. So please make sure you take advantage. And real quick to clear up some things with this Derrick Henry, this is going to be available on the app on Friday for anybody who has ever signed up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, whether you do that right now, whether you do that 2 years ago. I mean, it doesn't really matter. As long as you use promo code FLOCK, you'll have it. But if you didn't use promo code FLOCK, I'm sorry, my friend. I can't help you out on that one. Now, that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into these receivers. Starting off with someone that, I don't get why people are trading him away. We're seeing it in the live stream every single night, but what are y'all doing selling Chris Godwin? I understand with Chris Godwin, if you're looking at a raw points per game standpoint, he's behind a lot of guys. I mean, Chris Godwin is 100% very far down the ladder, very far down the rankings. If you're just looking at points per game, you have to remember with Godwin, however, this is a wide receiver playing games at the beginning of the year injured. This is a wide receiver going in, going out, going in, going. Honestly, if you're looking at the raw points per game, including the beginning portion of the season, it's just going to be skewing all the data here with Chris Godwin. What you need to be looking at is the past month. And I would make the same argument that with Tom Brady here, people are looking at the beginning part of the year where you have Evans getting kicked out of a game, Evans with a suspension, Chris Godwin being injured and going, okay, well, yeah, Tom Brady's a disaster. We don't want any part of this in fantasy football. And while I agree that maybe from a real life perspective, Brady's play has not been up to par, what you can say is he's second in the NFL in passing yards. The passing volume's still there. I mean, that's including all the injuries he had at the beginning portion of the season. Don't really see why people are deciding to go through and trading away Chris Godwin. I still view him as that low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. Be very happy to go out there and honestly sell someone like Deebo Samuel for him. I know that's a little bit aggressive here, obviously. I mean, we were saying last week to go through and sell Deebo Samuel for A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the next guy that we'll have on this list, we were saying to sell him for T. Higgins. Now with T. Higgins, I owe everybody an apology. Yes, I ranked him too high this past week. This past week, I looked at the situation with no Jamar Chase. I said, okay, wheels up with T. Higgins, and T. Higgins kind of fell flat here. With T. Higgins, the man had 3 receptions, 49 receiving yards, ended up saving the day with the receiving touchdown. But honestly, it was kind of the worst game we've had from T. Higgins this season. Now, T. Higgins, obviously very similar to Chris Godwin. He's dealt with the same issue in why it's dragging down his overall stat line on the year. In that back of the beginning portion of the year, week 1, we know that T. Higgins was a wide receiver that leaves early. We remember the primetime game against Baltimore, T. Higgins is supposed to play, then doesn't. If you're looking at the injuries, it is going to be skewing the per game numbers from T. Higgins. But outside of those injured games, if we instead look at everything else, 10 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets, 9 targets, 7 targets. This past week, 6. And the 1 week you didn't have Jamar Chase in this offense. So that is 100% very annoying, and I'm hoping that's not something we have to deal with going forward. I think if anybody watched the Cincinnati Bengals game, you clearly saw what happened. You saw that this Cleveland Browns coaching staff outclassed the Cincinnati Bengals, that the Bengals came in, nothing was working whatsoever, and with this Bengals offense, yes, we should be expecting it to be worse with no Jamar Chase. But if we take a step back, if we try not to overreact here, very similar to how Tom Brady right now is second in the NFL in passing yards. Joe Burrow is first in the NFL in passing yards. Now, of course, these players haven't gone through their bye. I mean, from a per game standpoint, Mahomes and Allen, Herbert, they're going to be over. But still, they have the passing volume in their offenses. With T. Higgins, he is still going to be right there leading the Cincinnati Bengals in targets and one of the most prolific passing offenses in the NFL until Jamar Chase returns. And even when Jamar Chase returns, I would still project him as a low-end wide receiver 1. So, yeah, I mean, go sell Deebo Samuel, go sell Michael Pittman, go get T. Higgins. And now our next guy, you've seen him on a buy low video for us every single week over the past month. Amon-Ra St. Brown. With St. Brown, I mean, he comes in 10 targets, 7 receptions, and 69 receiving yards. The first healthy week that we've had from Amon-Ra St. Brown in quite some time that he didn't actually score a touchdown. Now, very similar. You'll see that common trend here, that common theme with Godwin, with Higgins, with St. Brown. These are players that have dealt with injuries at some portion of this year that are dragging down the overall statistics that what people are going to be looking at from a per game standpoint. If you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown from a per game standpoint, doesn't look like he is some league winning player, but that's considering that against New England, he goes down with the injury. That's considering that against Dallas, the man goes down immediately. Like those two games, I think we can take them. I think we can throw them out the window, and they're not going to be predictive going forward. The games where Amon-Ra St. Brown's been fully healthy, you had Philadelphia, Washington, Minnesota, and Miami. And in those contests, Amon-Ra St. Brown's averaged over 10 targets a game. Amon-Ra St. Brown in those contests, if you include the rushing yards, he's averaged over 90 total yards a game. The man does look like a league-winning player. You have TJ Hockenson getting sent over to Minnesota. That's going to open up a few targets available at the line of scrimmage for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And also, we're kind of seeing with the Hockenson trade that you have this coaching staff, you have this general manager, you have this organization waving the white flag, saying they're throwing in the towel, they're surrendering, they're dead last in the NFL right now in terms of their record. They probably don't have any incentive. They don't have any rush to bring back Jamison Williams unless you really have Dan Campbell trying to save his job. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's about the easiest buy you could have. Now, dropping down to our next guy, someone that's going to be the most expensive name on this list, Davante Adams. With Davante Adams, I owe everybody an apology. I told everybody to start him as an elite level wide receiver this past week, even though we knew that he was dealing with the flu. I mean, the week prior, I had the flu. I mean, I was at peak physical performance in those live streams, in the videos. I was crushing it. So I was like, okay, well, if Mason Dodd, the physical specimen, could go through and crush the live streams, I'd imagine Davante Adams, the physical specimen, could crush the New Orleans Saints. I was wrong. Davante Adams clearly was very sick and he was not able to get over it. You had 5 targets, 1 reception, 3 receiving yards. You had this entire offense falling on its face. It was disgusting. You had no Darren Waller. You essentially had no Davante Adams here. And you had Derek Carr with 26 pass attempts, going through with 101 passing yards. Jarrett Stidham came in. Derek Carr had a QBR of 14. 14. It was disgusting. They just got shut out. I think that we can almost exclusively blame the struggles of Davante Adams on the sickness. He had a tough matchup going up against New Orleans. Derek Carr didn't perform. I think when we get Davante Adams fully healthy, when you get Darren Waller back in and just helping move the chains here, I think Davante Adams maybe doesn't go back to being a wide receiver that was seeing 10 targets a game. I mean, pretty much 11 targets a game before this contest. Maybe he drops down about 9 targets a game, but still a locked and loaded mid wide receiver 1 every week. Now, going to a cheaper option here, we are going to have Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, we talked about him on the waiver wire video because I guess in some shallow formats, people gave up on Garrett Wilson and dropped him. No idea how you're seeing that. But if you are looking at what's going on in New York right now, Corey Davis injured. Corey Davis probably come back soon, but still. Corey Davis banged up. Garrett Wilson, the ascending player, and Elijah Moore getting benched. The craziest thing ever, you have Denzel Mims in 2022. Denzel Mims, one of the biggest wide receiver busts in the NFL over the past few seasons, actually being second in snaps, only behind Garrett Wilson this past week. It was a tough matchup in general for the Jets going up against the New England Patriots. Obviously, Zach Wilson looked very bad. I've said it since Zach Wilson started to struggle his rookie season that Zach Wilson's a bad real-life NFL quarterback. We called this, I don't want to say a cursed franchise. I think it is a dysfunctional franchise from top to bottom, starting with the owner. And we looked, historically speaking, with the owner's track record and how that has fallen down and how that's trickled down to fantasy football in the success of the New York Jets. We've never had more hate on any video ever telling us, Mason, this is garbage. How are you telling us that the Jets are... Zach Wilson looks bad. Zach Wilson, there's no saving him. However, with Garrett Wilson, he's a phenomenal talent. Elijah Moore getting benched. Corey Davis banged up. He's going to be flooded with targets. Now going over to our next guy, let's pull up Amari Cooper. Now with Amari Cooper, he probably doesn't belong on the buy low video. You are buying high on Amari here. This is a wide receiver that with only 7 targets this past week, 131 receiving yards, and the receiving touchdown. I know some people are going to be maybe focusing on the interception he threw. Who the hell cares? They won 32-13. And with Jacoby Brissett, he's looked pretty good so far this season. And this is leading to a lot of people saying, okay, well, Deshaun Watson will be an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett, but I don't think he'll be that large of an upgrade. Don't get it twisted. No, that's not the case whatsoever. Deshaun Watson's still an elite level quarterback. The Cleveland Browns did not trade 3 first-round picks to go get Deshaun Watson and all the baggage he comes with, to then get that suspension, to then give him the most guaranteed money we have ever seen in NFL history because Deshaun Watson's a bad quarterback. I think the success of Jacoby Brissett, when we have seen Brissett fail time and time again before, speaks more to the elite offensive line you have for the Cleveland Browns and the fact this is a pretty good coaching staff here. So I think Deshaun Watson comes in, and I am more excited about Deshaun Watson after seeing the success of Jacoby Brissett in this great situation so far this year. Amari Cooper doesn't have much target competition whatsoever. The man's had 66 targets so far this season. I think the efficiency gets a spike up when we have the improvement at quarterback play. I think Amari's, when Watson comes back, a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. And if you look at wide receiver rankings right now, that's saying a lot. And now going to our last guy, I do not want you to buy him now. You know, there's always a player we have on one of these buy low videos. We say, don't buy him now, but I want you to put him on your watch list. I want you to get out your phone here, and I want you to set a little reminder. Buy Hollywood Brown in 2 weeks. Trade for Hollywood Brown right before the trade deadline. With Hollywood, obviously dealing with the foot injury, this is something that is disgusting. This is something that's going to hold him back for a decent amount of time. So his value is not going anywhere. I mean, if anything, it's only going to continue to go down as people forget what Hollywood Brown was doing at the beginning portion of the season. And you know, I spent the entire beginning portion of the season saying to sell Hollywood Brown because DeAndre Hopkins was going to be coming in, because DeAndre Hopkins is a wide receiver that historically averages double-digit targets per game, that DeAndre Hopkins is an alpha wide receiver stud. Well, I still stand by that, but the price point for Hollywood has cratered. And if we are looking at Hollywood Brown, is he going to succeed in Arizona by being that target hog? He was averaging 10 targets a game at the beginning of the year because you had no Rondale Moore, because you had no DeAndre Hopkins. Was he ever supposed to succeed that way? No. No. Because if you are looking at Hollywood, this is a wide receiver that wins with his speed. This is a wide receiver that if teams decide to bracket DeAndre Hopkins, if Hollywood doesn't have a safety just shadowing, all of a sudden Hollywood is going to have the opportunity to break off big, long touchdowns. And I think specifically in a non-PPR format where you would have that touchdown upside, where I expect that the Arizona Cardinals will be a very good offense when you have Hopkins, Rondale Moore, and Hollywood Brown all in the same field together. I think that Hollywood will be similar to Gabriel Davis in that you're looking at a player that should be playing in an offense with a lot of passing volume. You're looking at a player with big play potential, even if there's an alpha stud level wide receiver playing alongside him. So, I mean, he was valued a lot higher than Gabriel Davis earlier in the year, so we're saying to sell. Now I feel like, especially if we wait 2 weeks, it's going to be valued a lot lower than someone of that caliber. And I think we can take advantage. But I think that should be it for this video. Of course, if you enjoyed it, go down there, drop that like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. Let me know if you have any questions down there in the comment section. And of course, make sure you go and sign up for Underdog. Take advantage of this Derrick Henry half a rushing yard prop that we have. I mean, I worked my butt off to get you this, and this is going to show up for everybody who's ever used promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy on Friday. So if you sign up today, you'll get it on Friday. If you signed up 2 years ago with promo code FLOCK, you'll get it on Friday. If you signed up with a different promo code, I'm sorry, I can't help you. That's on you. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.